Moments with Louie Montalbo. I remember when we first aired our first episode in our first season, April of this year, 2024. We were not really sure how far we can move and proceed with our podcast. We were just starting out and figuring out how to move this along. All we knew was that based on our research of the kind of podcasts that was being aired on the internet, there were very few podcasts that was dedicated to the concerns and interests of senior citizens. We felt that there was a need that we could fill up by doing our podcast, focusing on issues, concerns about senior citizens, about getting old, and having as guests people who are already 60 and beyond. Our first season had 8 episodes, and our second season had 10 episodes. If you are watching us for the very first time, we would like to invite you to look at our YouTube channel or on Spotify and watch the different episodes that we have aired so far. For season 3, we hope to be able to air and to tackle issues that are very relevant to becoming older. We will have a conversation between what we call the baby boomers and the millennials and Gen Z. Between the two generations, we hope to be able to tackle issues and topics between the two generations, have a better understanding of each other's generation, and resolve or clarify issues or assumptions that we have about both the baby boomers and the millennials. Another episode we will be having will be to tackle a very sensitive and difficult issue, Alzheimer's, dementia. We know that these two diseases usually are confronted by people who grow old. So we want to better understand what is this all about? How do we know what are the symptoms? What are the signs that a person is going to have or is having Alzheimer or dementia? We hope to be able to invite as well someone whose loved one is undergoing Alzheimer and dementia. And what are the challenges and the concerns that this person, this caregiver might have in dealing with this particular illness. We will also have another episode where we will go to and visit a home for the aged, a facility for the elderly here in the Philippines. We thought that this was an important topic because in the usual Filipino family, we take care of our old ones. We take care of our senior citizens, we take care of our parents. Unlike in other countries where the home for the aged is part of the terrain or the options that they use in taking care of the elderly. So we thought would be an interesting and compelling topic to take a look at what was it like for someone to have his parent be brought to a facility, to a center, to a home for the aged. And we will be able to visit one actually and take a look at their facilities. Maybe perhaps talk to some of their guests or talk to those who are residing in that facility and get a sense of what it is like to live in a home for the aged in the Philippines. Another topic that will be explored on season 3 is we will talk to a couple who are both 60 years old. We are interested in asking them, how do they keep their love alive after years and years of companionship and being together? Is there a difference? How different is the relationship as they move into their senior years? How different was that when they were both starting and much younger than they are right now? And how do they keep the fire burning, so to speak, in their relationship? And finally, we will be using one or two episodes on this particular, which I think is very, very interesting. We have actually asked 25 people, good friends of mine, to write a letter to their 25-year-old self. We asked them, if you had the opportunity to write a letter to your 25-year-old, to your much younger self, what would you tell that person? Right now, we are gathering those letters, and they can either use a video or an audio recording or write the letter, and we will find a way to have it aired. So, this is a way for us to invite you as well. What if you were to write a letter to your 25-year-old self? What would you say? So, we invite you to send to us that letter. It can be an audio format or a video format, or just send to us that letter. You can decide whether you want to remain anonymous, but we would love to have you on video or audio to be able for us to air it on our podcast. If you decide to just send to us a text format of that letter, we would find someone, a voice talent, to read the letter for you. It would also be good if you're able to send to us a photo of your younger self and the recent photo, so we can use that when we air the episode. We hope to be able to collect as many as we can, and we promise you, as best as we could, we will show and air all your letters on our podcast. If you want to send your letter to your 25-year-old self to us, please send it on an email that we will be broadcasting in a bit. Which brings us to our next point. We hope to be able to keep on doing this podcast, but we want to hear from you. What are you thinking? What are your thoughts? What are your concerns? What topics do you want us to cover? What are the things that you think are very important for us to discuss on this podcast? Do you want to be a guest? Please send us an email, drop us a line on our Viber, and let's talk. We're also exploring the idea or the possibility of building a community among those of us who are watching this podcast. In so doing, we're able to interact with each other more and not just you listening to our podcast. These are just some of the ideas that we are exploring right now. Part of my motivation in starting this podcast was when I turned 60, I asked myself, before we continue with this episode, we would like to explain to you how a podcast works. Aside from views, subscriptions and likes help us know and determine how much we're able to reach our audience. We notice based on our analytics that 60% of you who are watching us have not subscribed on our YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcast. So we would like to request you, as you're listening to us, to please press that button, like and subscribe. It will help us with our advocacy and move to continue what we're doing. Now, let's go back to our episode. Part of my motivation in starting this podcast was when I turned 60, I asked myself, has the time ended for me to start something new? When you turn 60, are all the new things, all the starts of your life, have they ended? Or can we continue to do and to start something different and something new after 60? Doing this podcast was an answer to that question. I wanted to start to do something different, something new, something I've never done before. This podcast is one of them. The other thing that I've started, which I've never done before, is to run. I've started running about a couple of months ago with the idea of joining actually an organized run. I've never done that before. Last week, I actually joined a Garmin fun run where I finished my 5-kilometer run, first time ever in my life. Reflecting on that, preparing for that for a couple of months, I think part of my own insight about myself is that it's never too late to start something different, something new, even if we are senior citizens. Was it difficult? Oh, most definitely. Was it painful? A little bit. But I think part of the bigger challenge is my attitude and my mind. I needed to stop myself from saying, I'm too old for this. I cannot do this anymore. What will other people think? But I think at our age, we really don't care what other people think anymore. We just do it. I hope part of what we're trying to send as a message to our podcast as well is for those of you who are listening, no matter how old you are, but especially if you're 60 and beyond. Is there something you want to do that you've never done before? Is there something different? You want to start something new? I think my answer is just go ahead and do it. I did.
What was the single most challenging thing that happened in 2024 for you?
I think 2024 was a time when I started many things. I started to study again. I did this podcast. I started to run. I think being able to decide and break from my mindset that I cannot do these things, I think that's one of the hardest. The other thing I think is continuing the things that I need to do. Being a parent, doing my work, being consistent in what I'm doing. I think those are also very difficult things for 2024.
Question number two, what was an unexpected joy this past year?
The same, knowing and being able to realize that I can start again, I can start something different, I can start something new. I think that produced a lot of satisfaction, if not joy.
Pick three words to describe 2024. Three words.
Beginning, struggling, finding.
What was your biggest personal change from January to December of this past year?
Trying to discover other parts of myself that I didn't know before.
Question number five, what was your single biggest time waster in your life this past year?
Scrolling on my cell phone, endless scrolling over Facebook, Instagram. If there's one resolution I want to do in 2025 is to stop scrolling.
In 2025, I will be dot.
1 year older, but hopefully continue what I've started in 2024. So again, please like or subscribe on our channel on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Send us a message on our Viber so we can know what it is that you're thinking. This is Senior Moments with Louie Montalbo, diving into the mysteries of the later years.